Listen closely now. Not to the clang of steel, nor the roar of a conquering army, but to the silence. It is in the silence that the true battles of this palace are fought, behind walls adorned with silk and gold, where every shadow might conceal a dagger, every offered cup a slow poison. They say no one was meant to hear this particular tale. A whisper, they called it, too faint for the chroniclers, too dangerous for the scribes. But I stand here, behind this very pillar, and I have learned to decipher the language of forgotten blood. The Sultan believes his realm secure, his bloodline unblemished. He does not see the cracks in the foundations, the subtle tremors that begin not with an earthquake, but with a breath. For here, in the gilded cage of the harem, where beauty fades and power shifts like sand, revenge has no statute of limitations. It does not scream its fury, no, it merely whispers. And that whisper, once born, once nurtured in the cold hearth of a shattered heart, will pierce the very fabric of the dynasty. She was a queen once, her name a melody sung in the Sultan's ear, her beauty a rival to the dawn. But time and crueler hands saw her name erased from the scrolls, her image wiped from memory, her presence swallowed by oblivion. Her beauty withered, yes, but her soul? It became a cold, unyielding stone, holding but one solitary flame. A flame not of love, nor ambition, but of pure, distilled vengeance. You see, a woman scorned in these courts does not simply vanish. She learns the patience of the desert, the hidden strength of silk that can strangle, the silent grace of poison that works unseen. This is no fairy tale, my dears. This is a verdict, and it has already been passed. The first tremor, a whisper in the shadow, has begun its journey. She was a sun in human form, a star that dared to outshine the very firmament of this court, drawing all eyes, even the Sultan's, into her orbit. Her laughter, a melody poured into these very halls, once held him captive, a silken chain around his will. His gaze, usually a distant, calculating fire that weighed empires and men, softened only for her, reflecting a devotion so fierce it seemed carved from the very stones of this palace. For a fleeting season, she was the pulse of the dynasty, the vibrant thread weaving through the Sultan's dreams of conquest and legacy. Do you remember her, my ladies? The way she moved, a living poem in crimson silk, her jewels catching the light as if in agreement with her undeniable supremacy? She commanded not just attention, but reverence. Her triumph was absolute, her future unquestioned, sealed by the powerful bloodline she carried. But in these gilded cages, where power is the only true currency and favor a cruel mistress, even the brightest stars are vulnerable to the creeping shadow of envy. A single flicker of discord, a misplaced glance, a concubine's scarf thrown too carelessly in a moment of pique, such trifles can shift the axis of an empire. And her world, her meticulously constructed world, began its slow, agonizing collapse. The Sultan's eye, once hers alone, strayed, drawn by new youth, new promises. A word, perhaps, spoken in haste, a misstep in the intricate, poisoned dance of court politics, or simply the cruel, capricious hand of fate reaching out from the deepest shadows. Such is the fragile nature of a queen's reign, is it not? Built on whispers, undone by a breath, always at the mercy of a man's shifting desires. The whisper became a roar, then a terrifying, all-consuming silence. The fine, shimmering silk that had clothed her like a second skin, a testament to her elevated status and the Sultan's boundless affection, was stripped away. Replaced not by the luxurious fabrics of a lesser favorite, but by the rough, unforgiving weave of the forgotten, the cloth of exile. Her golden adornments, each gem a silent proclamation of her power and prestige, vanished. Not stolen by thieves, but confiscated by the cold, relentless decree of a court that had once bowed to her every whim. Her gilded cage became a barren cell, though the walls remained the same. She moved through these familiar passages, yet they were alien now, lined with the invisible chains of her banishment, each step an echo of her downfall. Then came the ultimate severance, the wound that would bleed eternally, a betrayal that tore through the very fabric of her soul. Her son, the living embodiment of her triumph, the precious seed of the imperial bloodline, the future heir to this vast dynasty, ripped from her embrace. A cry that was never heard, stifled before it could even leave her throat. A future snatched away, a mother's greatest purpose reduced to ashes. Do you feel the icy grip of that moment, my ladies? The profound, desolate silence that descends when a mother's greatest treasure is stolen, leaving only an echoing void where laughter once resided. Her chambers, once vibrant with the echoes of her laughter and the weight of imperial decisions, now stood desolate, haunted by the specters of her former glory. Her name, once whispered with awe and envy across every corner of the realm, became a forbidden word, fading into the annals of silent oblivion. She was erased, a star meticulously extinguished, leaving behind only the cold ashes of what had been a burning galaxy. But mark my words, even in utter ruin, a spark can survive. Deep within the desolation, beneath the dust of abandonment, that spark endured. The memory of every slight, every betrayal, every stolen dream, every tear shed in silent agony. A cold, unwavering hatred, sharp as a poisoned needle, began to course through her veins. It is the fuel for a revenge that has patiently, meticulously waited in the deepest shadows for the perfect moment to ignite the whole world in its flame. No forgiveness, only the promise of a reckoning that will shake the very foundations of this dynasty. The silks of the harem shimmered, rich and vibrant, catching the fleeting sun that dared to penetrate these gilded cages. A kaleidoscope of colors, a symphony of hushed giggles and clinking bangles, all designed to distract, to dazzle, to conceal. But beneath this surface, beneath the exquisite tapestry of luxury and illusion, the years flowed. Not like a gentle stream, but like a draught of poisoned sherbet, each sip slowly, imperceptibly, eroding the foundations of their peace. They danced, these women, for a fleeting glance, a moment of favor, their lives a perpetual theater of ambition and despair. Did they truly believe their petty struggles for a trinket or a night in the Sultan's bedchamber were the sum of their world? Did they truly see the true stakes of this relentless game of queens? Ah, how blind the human heart can be when draped in velvet and lulled by the false security of power. No one suspected. Not the plump eunuch counting his golden coins, his loyalty bought and sold with every favor. Not the scheming favorite, her beauty a fragile shield, her arrogance her undoing. Not even the Grand Vizier, whose pronouncements shaped the very destiny of the dynasty, his mind too preoccupied with external threats to notice the serpent coiling within. They lived their opulent, cruel lives, oblivious to the deeper currents stirring in the very foundations of this gilded prison. For in its forgotten depths, amidst the dust motes dancing in shafts of light, something far more terrible than an open struggle for the throne was brewing. It was a silence, pregnant with menace, a shadow stretching from a past long dismissed, now hungry for its reckoning. She did not cry, not anymore. The wellspring of her tears had long since dried, leaving behind a desert in her soul, fertile only for one seed, retribution. The forgotten queen. Her name, a ghost, rarely spoken, a deliberate oversight. Her existence, a faint echo. They thought her broken, withered, a blossom cast aside to fade in the gloom. They were wrong. She did not beg for mercy. She had seen too much of its brutal absence to ever believe in its power. Instead, she watched. From her secluded chambers, a web of invisible threads began to spread, not of silk, but of pure, cold calculation. Every whispered word carried by a servant, every nervous glance of a new concubine desperate for attention, every boastful declaration of a royal guard, every new decree from the Grand Vizier, All was food for her insatiable mind. She devoured details, sifting through the dross of daily life for the glittering shards of truth. The Sultan's shifting moods, the vizier's hidden alliances, the frailties of those who believed themselves untouchable. She knew the secret passages of the palace better than its architects, the secret fears of its inhabitants better than their confessors. She observed the subtle shifts in power, the minute betrayals, the unacknowledged hungers that drove every man and woman in this court. Each ambition, each jealousy, each secret love affair, each hidden debt, all became potential levers in her unseen hand. Her weapons were not the sharp dagger or the quick poison slipped into a cup of wine. No, those were for amateurs, for those who sought swift, decisive ends. Her arsenal was far more potent, forged in the fires of her own profound betrayal, an infinite patience that could outlast empires, an intimate knowledge of human weaknesses so profound it bordered on clairvoyance, and an absolute, chilling absence of mercy. She understood the intricate dance of the bloodline, the desperate, primal desire to secure one's offspring, the vanity that led men to expose their flanks, the fear that made them blind. She saw how easily devotion could curdle into resentment, how gratitude could turn to envy, and she would exploit every single crack in their polished facade. She was the shadow in the sunlit halls, the unheard whisper in the boisterous feast. Her power grew in the unseen, the unspoken. She was not a queen wielding a scepter, but a weaver of destinies, manipulating the threads of fate from afar. The harem, in its vibrant, unwitting ignorance, continued its charade. But every laugh, every celebration, every new rise to power was merely a ripple in the pond she had decided, with methodical precision, to drain. She waited. And her waiting was more terrifying than any open threat, any besieging army at the gates, any declared war. For it was a waiting fueled by an unquenchable thirst for slow, inevitable retribution. It was the calm before a storm that would not merely rage, but would systematically dismantle, piece by agonizing piece, everything they held dear. Their titles, their fortunes, their very lives, and the future of their dynasty. Did they feel the faint chill in the air, a subtle tremor beneath their silken slippers? Probably not. The sweetest revenge, after all, blooms in the deepest, most profound silence. The palace breathed a shallow, troubled sleep that night, each breath heavy with the scent of old incense and newer sins. Gold lay inert, its brilliance dimmed by the moon's cold gaze, reflecting nothing but the hollow promises whispered in these very halls. Beneath the opulent silks and behind the towering, silent walls, the court dreamed of power, of favor, of the swift, unseen hand of fate. But even in their slumber, they remained oblivious to the true architect of their impending dawn. It was not with the glint of a blade, nor the bitter taste of poison in a goblet, that the forgotten queen chose her moment. Such vulgarity was for lesser spirits, for those who lacked the patience, the vision, to sculpt their vengeance with the delicate precision of a master artisan. No, her retribution was a whisper, carried on a current of shadow and silence, finding its way to the most sacred of spaces. Think of it. The Sultan's private chamber, where the fate of an empire was etched into parchment, where decrees were born and destinies unraveled. On his great cedar table, amidst the scrolls of tribute and petitions for justice, lay the tools of his dominion. And there, unassuming yet potent as a sorcerer's charm, it rested. A single document. Not bound by a ribbon of silk, nor sealed with the ornate crest of a grand vizier. No, this was something far older, far more dangerous. It was a letter, you see, an artifact from a forgotten spring, a testimony to a betrayal whispered in a garden long since overgrown. Its very presence there was an impossibility, a ghost returned from the grave. How it arrived, who placed it, remained a question that would haunt the palace eunuchs and scribes for weeks. But I, from my vantage point behind this pillar, I saw the faintest tremor in the air, a ripple in the fabric of the night, as her will manifested. The seal, my dear ladies, the seal. That was her masterpiece. An intricate forgery so flawless in its execution that even the Sultan's most trusted imperial scribe, a man whose life was dedicated to the minutiae of wax and signets, would have sworn upon his mother's grave that it was authentic. Every microscopic crack, every subtle indentation, reproduced with a chilling exactitude that spoke not of mere skill, but of an obsessive, relentless purpose. It was not simply a copy. It was a perfect echo of the original, resurrected for a single, devastating purpose. What secrets did it hold, you ask? Oh, nothing so grand as an impending invasion or a plot against the throne directly. Her target was far more insidious, far more personal. It spoke of a misspoken word, uttered years ago in a moment of arrogant confidence. It alluded to a minor conspiracy, long buried under layers of political maneuvering and convenient amnesia, involving a distant cousin, a land dispute, and a handful of silver. A truth, insignificant in isolation, but now, meticulously placed, it was a spark to a powder keg. This single, seemingly innocuous revelation, brought forth from the depths of oblivion, was aimed with deadly precision at a man whose career had blossomed like a poisoned flower in the Sultan's favor. A man whose bloodline was intertwined with the very tapestry of this dynasty, whose future seemed as assured as the sunrise. With one forged seal, one dredged-up word, his carefully constructed edifice of power began to fracture. The foundations of his influence, built on a lifetime of calculated loyalty and ruthless ambition, quaked. The silent strike, the elegant cruelty. No one would suspect the source. How could they? The forgotten queen, cloistered and seemingly powerless, was merely a whisper in the palace's memory, a faded portrait in a forgotten gallery. They would search for enemies among the grand viziers, among rival noble houses, among the whispered intrigues of the new concubines. They would never look to the shadow that had slipped past the guards, a wisp of vengeance trailing silence. But I saw it. I saw the shadow of her form, slender and swift, as it receded down the deserted corridor, leaving behind only the faintest scent of jasmine and the chilling certainty of a storm about to break. And in that fleeting glimpse, illuminated for a fraction of a second by a distant torch, I caught the subtle lift of her chin, the faint curve of her lips. A quiet satisfaction. The kind that only comes from knowing that the game, after all these years, had just begun. And she had played the opening move perfectly. The dynasty, my friends, had just begun to bleed. The silence. It fell, a hungry shroud, upon the palace. Not peace, but absence. Not the court's hushed reverence, nor the condemned's gasp of fear. This was the profound stillness left when meticulous purpose is fulfilled. The architect of ruin vanished into shadow. She, the forgotten queen, reclaimed no throne. No trumpets hailed her. No pardon cleansed her name. Forgiveness? A weakness she shed long ago. Her vengeance, forged in oblivion's crucible, sought no warmth. A cold, precise instrument, poison bloomed in solitude, leaving only chilling quiet. What price, then, for such absolute retribution? Enemies crumbled, yes, like ancient stones. Yet no crown graced her, no applause filled the void. Did she find solace in that devastating quiet? Or only the grim satisfaction of proving that even the discarded, the banished, wield a power more terrible than legions? Here, where blood stains silk, where every promise is betrayal, remember. No forgiveness for those who dared to forget. No colder, more absolute justice than that which rises from the deep, leaving only the profound, echoing legacy of silence. A silence that promises a new storm.